Hello, everyone. Our guest is an amazing woman, an internationally recognized actress who has starred in over 40 television movies, 5 miniseries, and 12 motion pictures. She is a producer and an author, but she first won international fame like this. You will meet our Emmy-winning bionic woman in a few seconds and learn about the impact that she is having around the world with her Quiet the Mind and Open the Heart experimental workshop and retreats. And for the first time, we have an audience here today. Theater and film students from COD who I met at the recent Tools for Success seminar put on by Palm Springs Women in Film and Television at Cal State. Our audience is here to meet and learn from our guest, so you will also meet them. Well, when it comes to the best, Lindsay Wagner certainly qualifies. Here she is with one of her very famous co-stars, Anthony Hopkins.
I think I am still a little spiffy, as they say.
Well, it stands to reason. They say that danger doubles the effect of alcohol.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you do now.
Oh. Well, it's also been said that whenever a man and woman are alone together, that there are sexual implications.
Really? Never heard that before.
Well, now you have.
It depends on the man and the woman, I suppose.
It definitely depends on the man and the woman.
And now, to meet Lindsay Wagner.
Hi. Hi.
You know, you are such an accomplished actress, but you're more than that. I mean, you are a caring individual. The roles that you played after Bionic Woman all have had special meaning. You are the honorary chair of the International Agency Council on Child Abuse and Neglect. You're interested in animal welfare, domestic violence, environment, and the advancement of human potential, which is really what you're working on now. You know, you corrected me. It isn't experimental workshops, it's
experiential.
Experiential,
yeah.
Which means?
Which means that when you come to the workshops,
yeah.
that you actually get into experiencing the kind of shifts that I'm talking about because of the techniques we use rather than just hearing me talk about something. You take the information home and go home and just try and figure out how do I apply this to my life. It's very experiential, and I teach certain things. We talk about the concept that our experience of any life circumstance is a function of our perspective of that circumstance, or our perspective of that person is what gives us our experience of them or that moment.
That's true. Rather
than thinking that with you came the way I felt about you. It actually came with me.
Yeah.
Encountering you.
That's very interesting.
The programming already there. So when people say, well, even intellectually I could understand that kind of, but you can't mean under this kind of a circumstance. Anybody would feel this under this kind of circumstance. And then, we look at different circumstances where, in fact, other people have had a different response to that same kind of thing than you would have, or than I would have. And so, therefore, it just kind of keeps proving the case. What do you do about shifting your perspective? How do you get a handle on what creates that perspective? Is in fact what we work on in the workshop, and shift it, and you can feel it. That's why I call it experiential workshop.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and I want to find out how you got involved in all of this. But your caring has always been in your career. One of your films is Shattered Dreams, which you co-produced. And if we could look at a scene from Shattered Dreams, which has to do with domestic abuse.
Keep you warm. Thank you.
You've got to do something about this.
Has John called?
You've got to do something.
I'm afraid. Charlotte, nobody deserves to live like this.
Now listen to me. I'm going to help you. And so is Dottie. Okay?
I love him.
That doesn't mean you can live with him.
I know.
That interest in domestic violence, now you even have worked with the Sheriff's Department. How did that come about?
Well, all of the years that I've worked on my own self, on my own healing, our family early on struggled with that issue, and so it's something that I know very well from the inside out. And you know, growing up with something like that, for everybody involved, there's healing to be done. And I, having this great faith in human potential, always believe that we can heal from anything, really. I'm kind of Pollyanna when it comes to that. At least a certain amount, if not a whole bunch.
Well, how did you...
And so I've done it myself. Yeah. And as I learned what was most effective for me, I started then sharing that with other people and studying these things, because at one point I wanted to be a psychologist, and but I was dyslexic and I couldn't get through college. They didn't know how to help us when we were young at that time. Today it's like a no-brainer. Oh, well, that's no problem. Here, we'll just do this. Yeah. But back then they didn't even understand it. So, so I studied myself, taught myself. And I began sharing with, when a friend of mine from ICANN, which was the Interagency Council of Child Abuse and Neglect, when she started a program for domestic violence offenders in the jail, men who were incarcerated, who had the option to take a recovery course called Bridges to Recovery. I was visiting that class and I thought, wow, I've learned some techniques that would really be helpful. So as I started sharing it with the teachers there and working with them a little bit, I kind of got sucked into the whole process, and I spent several years there, and then started a program co-facilitating with James Beard, the man who was one of the primary teachers in that class in the jail. We set up a program where, when the men would come out of jail, to help the families reunite and learn a common way of seeing what's going on, and learn new ways of relating to themselves and each other.
And do they really, can they be cured of that, really?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And one of my passions is to, you know, at some point do another film to kind of change the public's opinion that that's a hopeless case. Because I believe that when we as a people embrace something, we used to think that women like it, right? I mean, think back in the 50s and the 60s, and the common thought was, well, she must like it, why would she stay? Absolute, totally ignorance. But and so it is with most men. They don't want to be like that, and people don't believe it. There's no help for them, because they get demonized and disenfranchised instead of helped.
I'm going to jump from this, which is so interesting, to another subject, and that's terrorism, which intrigued you. And there is a scene from a marvelous, marvelous film that I'd like to look at that has to do with that. It is Flight 847, the taking of Flight 847.
Israelis.
There are none.
Look!
There are American and Canadian and Greek and Tunisian, but there are no Israeli. Well, I can't. American passports, they don't indicate religion. You see, there's no
Names, German names, Jewish names.
I can't do that.
Jewish.
I can't.
Jewish passports.
I'm German. Don't you understand? I can't do that. You can't expect me to select Jews for... I can't do that.
terrorism is such a contrast to what you are doing all over the world, and that is your instruction, if I can call it that, on living together and opening the mind and the heart. You have a wonderful CD that really is captivating of how to meditate with the music. I mean, just, is this your life now, or do you think you might do more acting? You just said you'd like to do another film to do with the domestic violence.
Yeah. It's what I'm doing mostly now. It's what I've done mostly of late. And it's not, I haven't made any decision that I've quit acting. It's not like that. It's just my focus kind of shift, and I found myself doing this, so I feel I'm in the right place at the right.
Well, what is so wonderful is you are using your celebrity to do a lot of good.
Yeah. I had a lot of people help me in my life, and I had some amazing techniques and conceptual shifting that people helped me with, that helped me heal myself and grow, and I just, so in my workshops I offer the things that I have studied, but also I studied them because they were so effective for me.
Yeah. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit, but then we're going to turn it over to our audience of people who want to be directors and actors and so on. So let's take a break, and we'll return. And now our audience is going to have their turn, but I still want to ask you about your studying, your book. You have 2 books out, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What are they?
Well, one is a vegetarian cookbook.
Yeah.
Having been a vegetarian for almost my whole adult life. People, especially when I had my children, who are now in their mid and late 20s, people would always say, well, how do you do it? I mean, what do you do? What do you feed you? And they asked me so much, of course, being so visible, right? People want to know how I do it. And I just said, I should need to write a book. And so I co-authored with a good friend of mine who was also a vegetarian. And because you just kind of do it. You do it from the hip, you know, when you grow up doing that from the time I was 18, you know.
And then you have it.
I have an acupressure facelift book.
That is fascinating. Yeah. I'm going to get to that another time because we're going to come back. We're going to continue this after this show. See, we're going to have 2 shows. Okay, let's see. We have some students. Larry, you are from COD.
Yes, how you doing, Ms. Wagner? My name is Larry Nelson. I'm a theater student at College of the Desert, and I have aspirations to be a director, theater and film. My question for you is, as an actress and also as a producer, what is the most important quality you look for in a director?
That I look for?
Yes.
Oh. Well, I must say that the directors that I have worked with, that I have enjoyed working with the most, and with whom I feel I was able to summon my best performances, were directors who had acted, maybe not even successfully, but had acted first. I think it's really important for you to understand what the actor is going through and what it takes to make an actor feel safe, if you will. Enough to create a safe space, almost parental in a way. And that doesn't mean giving in to everything. It just means that there's a strength and a power to me in somebody who knows what the actor's going through and can create, an atmosphere where the actor can do their best and feels that support from the director.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Alicia. And Alicia, you are also a College of the Desert student.
Yes, I am, and I'm also an aspiring actress. And I was wondering what your best advice for a young actress would be.
Well, that's a big subject. I think to find honesty is the greatest challenge. And that when you're working with a character, find yourself as deeply as you can in those words, in that story, in that circumstance. Your emotional honesty, as even you, let's say, you. Even if you're playing somebody who's killing somebody, I can't believe that you've never thought, I sure would like to kill that person, right? So somewhere in there is that, the potential to summon that. But then start building your character if that person's not like you much. Their personality, let's say, then start building the personality on top of that. But find the honesty for yourself first.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time we have left. Do we have time for Jeremy? Huh? maybe we'll, yeah, because we've got, well, you know what? We are going to, so viewers, you be with us next week. We are continuing with Lindsay Wagner next week, and we have other students who will be asking her questions, just like Alicia and Larry did. And they're not going away, they're here, and we're going to tape it, and then we will share it with you. But we're almost out of time, but I just want to thank you so much for being here. And I know that I've just got so many questions that I want to ask you. So I'm really glad that you have agreed to do that. But you also were in the East. I mean, a lot of your thinking has to do with the Eastern thinking as well as versus the Western thinking. And I wondered,
versus, but yeah.
Well, together with.
I know.
Is that better?
Exactly.
How did that come about?
Oh gosh, when I was a very young woman in my late teens, I met some very exceptional people. They were, as a matter of fact, you have a church here in the Valley, what do they call it now, the Center for Spiritual Living.
That was Religious Science, is that the one? Yeah.
Yes, Church of Religious Science, yeah.
Yeah.
And Dr. William Hornaday, who was the one who co-founded the church with Ernest Holmes, was one of my mentors. And their methodology of healing something helped me to not have to have surgery on an illness that I was going through. And that opened my eyes and said, oh my goodness. And some of that thinking is, because it is Christian-based, it is, it's not a non-Christian religion. But they have added some understandings that are very inherent to the Eastern philosophy. So that was my orientation in a very young age. And I continued to study both East and West from that point on.
And you're going to Italy to do
one of my workshops.
Your workshop. And I noticed on the website it says English and then says Italian. Do you speak Italian?
No. We're going to have a translator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is this the first one you've done in Europe, or you have been in Europe before?
I did 3.5 months last year, and 4.5 months in Europe last year. England, Ireland, mostly in England last year, and then I'll be doing a few in England and now Italy this year.
How many people come to these workshops?
It depends on the format we're doing. There's some formats where it can be any number of people, and there's other formats that are more intimate and more intensive, and we try to keep it between 25 and 40. So.
And I know you have 3-day ones.
I have one in Ontario actually coming up.
Oh, really?
In the first weekend of June.
Oh, great.
At the Ayers Hotel down in Ontario.
And so people.
And that's the 2-day workshop.
And if people are watching, they can call.
Absolutely.
Your website has been
come
on.
Join us. We'd love that.
Right. Okay. I know, Soraya, you're a fan of Lindsay's, and you have a question.
My name is Soraya, and I'm an actress. What I'd like to know is, what is your greatest strength that has made you a successful actress? And how are you using that strength in your work as an advocate for human potential?
That's an essay question. Well, what I consider to be is kind of a jump off of the original question about acting, and that is to find your own truth. I look for pieces that mean something to me in respect to my own personal evolution, and what I feel would be helpful in some way to the people who watch it. I always look for things that I find, except for sometimes something's just fun, But short of that, I look for the pieces that that have something that I feel is maybe transcending, if I may be so bold as to use that word, or as opposed to just surviving something. When you do drama, you get a lot of survival stuff, And to me, I'm interested in thriving. And so I look for stories about women, and most of the things I've done are true stories. I look for stories that have an arc where the woman actually grew into, didn't just survive it, but grew into something. And that's what I expect of myself as a human being, and that's what I offer in the ways that I've found it to work for me in my life. That's what I offer in my workshops to other people, because this worked for me. It helped me really get out of that consciousness and into this one, and that made my life better, and it made me a nicer person.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I am just so pleased that all of these younger people are here. And I know Soraya's out of school, but the others are at College of the Desert, and they all want careers in the theater or films. Did you do theater at all? I mean, you were just all films and television?
Pretty much. I did a little bit of theater when I was young, but not really even professional theater.
All right, now I have a question for you. With your answer to Soraya, in looking for the truth in the role that you play, how did you use that with the Bionic Woman? I mean, here is something that is so extraordinary and not really a true situation, I don't think.
Well, actually, I didn't take it as such. I took it as a very real circumstance. And in fact, we did a lot of very cutting edge and unusual stories. If you look at the series itself, and which, by the way, they've finally gotten their rights issues worked out, and they're going to be releasing it again this summer on DVD. So we're going to be able to look at it again. But we worked very hard to make it not just be, an action show with a tough guy in a skirt. We really worked hard to put in conflict resolution as ideas, to put in human qualities even to the so-called bad guy, because honestly, I love my country, I love my culture, but there's sometimes real short-sightedness in the thinking, if you're not on our side, that there's something just completely wrong with you. I mean, you're just completely wrong, as opposed to you have your agenda and we have ours. Let's see what we can do to understand that about each other. We're pretty quick, as I think it's a human problem. We're pretty quick to just draw that line and say, if you're not on this side, you're right, and on this side, you're wrong. So we did stories, even in The Bionic Woman, where we explored that, showed certain personal motivation. And this is something that I pushed for constantly in the stories, and it made it hard.
And they listened to you.
Well, they
did. And as a fairly new actress when you started.
But that was part of my contract.
That they did.
I asked for that in the very beginning, or I wouldn't have done it, because I really didn't just want to do another show and have yet another show that held that old kind of consciousness, black and white. That I didn't want to do that show. And so when I made the agreement to do it, I said, as long as I can have some creative control and you can understand, do you like what I'm saying? Because this is what I'd like to do with it. And it was tough, and they worked hard trying to get out of that old mold. When we had an edict to do so many bionics within a certain period of time, in this many bionics we had to do in each show. So how are you going to do that if you're not going around bashing people? And so that's where the humor came from. So I said, well, let's, we can make it funny. And Ken Johnson was very creative, and all the writers we had. So we worked really hard to make it unique.
When you started, did you ever think that show would be as successful as it was? I mean, when you were first cast?
No, I don't think any of us had any idea it was going to become iconic. It certainly there were some clues in that it was literally demanded by the public. It wasn't something that we started out to do ever. It was just a visit on Lee's show, on The $6 Million Man. And then and then they killed her off because it was an easy way to get her out of there, Traumatized all the children in the United States. And the letters were just horrible, coming in saying, you just completely freaked out my child. There were letters literally from Children's Hospital saying what irresponsible programming you did.
No, I had no idea.
So they brought me back to life. So I was like, well, I've got to bring her back to life. And then they just said, okay, now we're going to turn down your bionics to the public. She's safe, she's good, and she's going to go teach school, so everything's fine. And then the response was so huge, they said, well, we're going to have to make this a series.
Well, and it went all over the world. I mean, that really established you as an internationally famous star.
Yeah, kind of me and Coca-Cola was like.
And then, of course, you did those Ford commercials for a long time.
Yeah.
And we were going to do that, and I thought, no, I'd rather see on the screen your acting, but you were wonderful selling Fords. Yeah. They could use you again, although they're doing very well now.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun making those. It was like making little movies as we go along. Yeah.
Well, I think, again, I'm going to thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, turn in next week, as we're continuing this conversation next week. And I want to thank not only you for coming, but I also want to thank all of our guests over there for coming and being part of our audience. We really appreciate it so much. And I hope that we can do this a lot more often, because I think it's great fun. Thank you. And Lindsay, thank you. And
my pleasure.
We'll continue this in a few, we'll continue it and you can watch it. So please join us right here, as well as Desert Cities On Demand, any time of day or night, 7 days a week. And that's channel 110 on your Time Warner dial. So be with us, and we'll see you next time.